Okay, hello. Welcome to the program this afternoon. We're going to get started in just a couple minutes here, so just getting the live stream up and running so we don't have to worry about that when we get closer to it. So if you're watching live, just hang out for a couple minutes, and if you're watching after the fact, you can skip ahead about 5 minutes to get to the program. Yeah, and thanks so much for joining us, and we are going to, we can get started in just a couple minutes. All right, I'm going to mute the microphone, but I promise to unmute it when we get started.
And I've been in the States for probably, I think, 25 plus years here or more. I've kind of lost count. My family immigrated to the state in 1988. And I remember landing here in Wausau. We actually came to Wausau. This was the first place that we landed. And getting off the plane, it was right around this time too, in September, October, November time. And I could remember getting off the plane and thinking to myself, man, these guys live in some weird houses. Because the first thing I saw was the control tower, right? So I was like, okay, like I guess this is the houses that we're gonna be staying in. And turns out it was nothing like that. So I'm here to kind of present on my journey or my experiences coming here from the refugee camp. I was about that guy's age, my youngest son's age, when I came here. So my memory of it's spotty, but over the years it's been kind of filled in by my parents too. But I can still remember some of the things that I will be talking about in this slide. Just to give a little history, right? Who are the Hmongs? This is from the Hmong American Center's website, so you can get the same information off of there. The Hmong, we are an ethnic group of people with a specific language and culture. The Hmong originally came from China over 4,000 years ago. Some Hmongs left China to Vietnam, Laos, Thailand, and Burma, beginning in the early 1800s as a result of land expansion by the Chinese government. And since 1975, after the US pulled out of South Vietnam, thousands of Hmongs have moved out of Laos to seek asylum in many European and Western countries, including Australia, France, Canada, Germany, and the United States. According to the 2010 US Census, there are about 260,000 Hmong Americans living in the United States, with the majority of them living in California, Minnesota, and Wisconsin. You might ask, what were the Hmong's role in the U.S. during the Vietnam War? I know this topic has been talked about over and over, but in the early 1960s, the United States CIA sought out the Hmong and recruited them to fight in the secret war against the North Vietnamese and the communist Pathan Lao. The Hmong played many critical roles under the direction of the United States CIA, including harassing the communists on the Ho Chi Minh Trail, providing intelligence about enemy operations, guarding U.S. strategic radar installation, and rescuing American downed pilots. After the war in 1973, the Hmongs were singled out by the victorious communist government of the Lao in Vietnam. The Hmongs were hunted down, taken to a concentration camp, put into hard labor, and persecuted. Their villages were sprayed with chemicals and bombed with napalm, and it was estimated that underestimated that more than 10%, about 35,000 of the entire Hmong population in Laos died as a result of the war and its aftermath. Many who survived suffer physical, mentally, and emotionally damages until today. The first Hmong family resettled in Minnesota, arriving in November of 1975. The largest wave came after the passage of the U.S. Refugee Act of 1980. And why are the Hmongs in Wisconsin, you might ask? Unlike past immigration groups, the Hmongs are political refugees who fled their countries because of war and persecution. The Hmong refugees are legally admitted to the United States by the U.S. government and were initially resettled by the church organizations such as the Catholic Charities and Lutheran Social Services. Area churches sponsor Hmong family here in Wisconsin and other states in the U.S. In 2010, the census showed that there were 49,000 Hmong Americans living in Wisconsin, and the community significant with Hmong population includes Milwaukee, here, Sheboygan, La Crosse, Madison, Eau Claire, Green Bay, Appleton, Stevens Point, Wisconsin Rapids, Menominee, and so on. Hmong culture is a place of great importance to the family. Most of us moved to Wisconsin, not because of the winter, but because of our family and our clan leaders. Wisconsin also provides opportunities for our families struggling to create a new life in the United States. Wisconsin City offers a peaceful and healthy lifestyle as well as educational opportunities for both children, adults Furthermore, Wisconsin provides agricultural opportunity such as farming and gardening for my Hmong family. And here in Marathon County, we're probably either the biggest or second largest Jensen provider for the county. So that is something that we're very proud of. I myself went to Eau Claire after we landed here in Wausau. And I grew up in Eau Claire, attended the high school there, and then went to UW Eau Claire, graduated there with a biology degree, and then I worked for the Special Olympic and Lutheran Social Services for a while. And then career kind of changed, and I moved to Wausau. And I'm currently a forensic scientist for the Department of Justice for the state of Wisconsin. So I work out at the crime lab. I do forensic imaging, and I help out with crime scene documentation. And also video analysis, and provide trainings for law enforcement agency. So that's a little bit about me. But we'll have the floor open to questions later if you guys have any other questions. But I'm gonna dive into my little presentation here. So this piece was written by me for my parents to kind of show them what I remember as a little kid. So bear with me. These are me pulling memories to share with everyone. So it's called Hard-Boiled Eggs. It was another late, hazy afternoon in the Ban Vinai refugee camp. Nothing has changed. Still dusty, still dirty, and still hungry. I remember my mother rushing through the front door of our makeshift shack we called home. She had an extra pep in her step today after receiving our daily rations from the camp center. As she walked past me, I saw a glimpse of white through the milky plastic bag hanging from her waist. I knew that she had something special for me. She quickly put the rice and sardine away and called me over to reveal to me what was inside the bag. Inside the crumpled, recycled, stamped bag with red foreign letterings were 4 peeled, hard-boiled eggs. My stomach trembled at the sight of the eggs. I wanted so badly to stuff them in my mouth and choke on their creaminess, but Mother closed it before my little hands could reach them. She whispered to me that the eggs were not for dinner, but for lunch, for tomorrow. For tomorrow, it would be our last day at the camp. It was our time to leave to go to a place called Amiga. I was blindsided by this unexpected news and thought about it all night. My young mind couldn't grasp the concept of leaving my friends behind to go to this foreign place my mother called Amiga. As my mind wandered over the hills and fields that my friends and I played in, I eventually drifted off into slumber, dreaming of those 4 hard-boiled eggs. Early next morning, I awoke to the neighbor's rooster crowing. My mother was already up nursing my brother, and my father was busy packing our belongings into a plastic bag woven together from leftover plastic pellet straps. He packed our immigration documents, a change of clothes for each family member, some rice, and the hard-boiled eggs. After we finished, he came over and sat next to me on the hard, unforgiving bamboo bed. He washed my face with a cold, wet washcloth and said to me, "Mitu, tinu namu, kasanchai, tinu namu, kalochi chaiplala." He said to me, "Son, don't be scared. We are going to a better place, a place where you won't be hungry anymore." After a quick breakfast of rice porridge and salt, we were on our way. My father called out our names as we left our aluminum roof home, a common ritual which Hmong elders perform to ensure the souls of their beloved aren't left behind. Usually this is performed with a boiled chicken and some hard-boiled eggs. We made our way along the dirt road, packed down by the many trips to retrieve water from the local well. We passed the flea market and the sewing center, where my mother took her story cloth to sell to feed her family. As I sat on top of my father's shoulder, I saw a long line of silver buses lining up in the soccer field. They looked like giant caterpillars gleaming in the morning sun, being swarmed by hundreds of ants. And as we got closer, These ants turn into people, hundreds of refugees waiting to board. We waited in line for hours. Finally, our names were called by this tall, light-skinned man. He spoke Hmong, but with a monotone foreign accent. He had us lined up next to each other, side by side. We were given a sign with foreign writings, and I later realized that the writings were our names and refugee identification number. Our pictures were taken like inmates heading to prison. And after our photos were taken and our fingerprints rolled, we waited to board the bus. As the bus started up, the smell of diesel filled my nostrils. Till this day, it still reminds me of those buses. I remember sitting on my father's lap, next to him, my mother nursing my brother. We were finally on our way to the transfer station in Pananikom, Thailand. As the buses began to leave, I could hear the wailing of loved ones saying goodbye to each other for the last time. My mother stuck her hand out and held her brother's hand one last time and assured him that they'll meet again, whether it's this life or the next. The bus moved on and my stomach rumble reminded me of those hard-boiled eggs. After a long nap, my father woke me up, told me that we were almost there. It was dark now, and for the first time in my life, I saw street lamps. They lit up the night like giant fireflies. They were so bright, stinging your eyes if you looked directly at them. It wasn't long before we arrived at the station. Everyone on the bus got up, one by one, and got off the bus. Our little family got off and retrieved our belongings from the belly of the bus. I can recall there were Thai soldiers everywhere. They shouted and ordered us into single file lines, and we did. We entered this big warehouse-looking building with cold concrete floor. We found an empty spot along the wall and sat down. I've never seen so many people crammed into one place before. There were families with elderly folks, little babies, and some even with chickens. Then it hit me. I haven't eaten since breakfast. Seeing those chicken now, I couldn't stop thinking about the hard-boiled eggs. I was so hungry by now that my stomach didn't rumble anymore. It just hurt. I asked my mom if I could have some food, and she replied with a silent nod and reached into the plastic basket and pulled out the hard-boiled eggs. She patiently split the eggs in half with her bare hands, added a little bit of salt to it, and then placed each half into a small plastic bag, along with some rice, and squished them together. Once thoroughly mixed, she handed the bag to me and one to my brother. I opened mine up quickly and ate it. I was still hungry, but I knew better to save some for my parents. I could still remember my parents eating their eggs like it was the last meal, holding back tears. I remember thinking to myself, theirs must have been saltier, given the tears it was mixed with. Till this day, eating hard-boiled eggs still brings tears to my eyes. The end. And that's my story, what I can recall from coming, leaving the refugee camp, going to Pananikom, and coming here in the U.S. So today, I have something special for you all. In person, the ones that have attended in person. I brought some hard-boiled eggs, and some rice, and a little bit of salt. And if you want, my wife will pass them around, and you can mix it together, squish it, add some salt, and maybe be able to taste a little bit of what the 5-year-old me waited all day and night to have. Thank you. Yeah. We'll open the floor up to questions unless Ben and Cheryl have something else.
I think we're just going to have a microphone here, if you would mind speaking into that so everybody can hear.
How long did your parents live in the camp?
My parents lived in the camp probably from, I'm not 100% sure, but I think they lived there from 1982 until 1987. Because we migrated here in 88. So I believe they were there for that many years. So probably about 6 years, I want to say. Yeah. So I was born there in 84, and my brother was born there in 86. Yeah. So No, she had it in the bag like this, so you just take it and you just kind of squish it together with the rice. Mix it thoroughly.
I have a question for you.
Yep,
Okay, so when you got here, you were schooling?
yes.
Okay, so when you got here, did you start school right away, and where did you go?
Yes, I started school right away. I started preschool in Eau Claire. So, actually here, started preschool here. And I remember going to kindergarten here, and the school that I went to, I can't recall it, but it's the school that is right before 6th Street. And they have their playground right there at 6th Street. What is that school called?
Franklin?
Franklin, yes. So yes, it was Franklin. And I did a year there, kindergarten, and then I went to Eau Claire and started first grade at Sam Davy.
Were there a lot of other Hmong children there?
There were at that time, because there was a lot of us that were living here in Wausau already that had immigrated here. So once you squish it all together, then you can just kind of eat it like a rice bar, you know? Yep, and you can add a little bit of salt to it. So that's all we had to eat for lunch. It's not McDonald's. Sorry, guys.
Did your father fight in the war?
My father fought towards the end of the war. So he was actually sent to Thailand. The reason why I'm here today was because at the time he was about 12 and they needed more Morse code specialists. So our relatives encouraged him to cross the Mekong and come into the refugee camp. And then he did trainings in the with the Thai army and the CIA to be a Morse code specialist. So he did that during the end of the war. And he was still at training camp, finishing up his training when his platoon was ordered back to go back to Laos to fight, to take over a base. And he couldn't go because he was not complete with his training at that time. And they went back and it was a trap. They all died. None of the men came back. And then he had to make the tough choice of one, going back and joining a different platoon and fighting, or take his family and come to America. So he made that choice, because if he would have went back, I don't think I would be standing here today. So his story is pretty interesting too, because when he crossed the Mekong, he was with women and children and a couple soldiers and him, and they floated across the Mekong. And as they approached the shore, some Thai bandits came by with a boat, and they were going to execute everyone and take all their stuff. Well, luckily, my dad had an M1 carbine with him, so he pulled that out of the water, and those guys skedaddled because they just wanted an easy, picking, so they didn't want any trouble. So they just took off. So because of the M1 carbine that he had, his family, they survived the crossing, or else they would have all been shot and killed. And at that time, no one's looking for you, if they dump you in the river.
Everybody's eating.
Yeah.
Does anybody else have?
Anyone online have questions?
Yeah, I'll check, but
I can answer. So currently, right now, in the community, I'm part of the Hmong American Center. I'm the treasurer for that. And then I'm also part of the Central Wisconsin Hmong Professional. I'm the treasurer for that. So I'm holding all these money, but I don't have any of the money. But yes, so that's what I'm doing, in part of the community, helping out our community grow and the greater community. And, moving here, I think it's about, almost 10 years that we've been in the Wausau area. And, I want to say that it's been a great home for us. Very welcoming community. Everyone's well-rounded, and they're willing to sit down and have a meal together and talk about how we can progress forward and make this a better community for all our children.
Yes, we actually had your group represented at our holiday at the houses last year, and there were so many compliments about your display.
Thank you.
And also we had some dancers and a gentleman that sang. It was incredible.
Yeah, I wish I had the voice, but nope, I'm just a talker.
Besides dancing and doing that sort of stuff, what kind of things do, can you be more specific about what things the organizations that you're part of do to try to help do that?
So the Hmong American Center provides services to the community, not just the Hmong community, but the community in general. If you need help, elderly individuals that needs help navigating, like going to the doctors or, just traveling around town, or finding a meal to eat. On Thursdays, we have a new program that they just started out, where we're feeding the elders. Anyone 65 or older can sign up, and then we will provide traditional Hmong dishes, dinner for you to just come and eat, and do that, and give back to the community. My wife here is actually part of the H2N program. That's kind of through HAC, and they connect Hmong and Hispanic individuals and provide information about COVID and what's happening with that. We also provide jobs, a place where people can look up jobs and help develop the youth too. They have youth programs like SOLOC and the HOMG group that inspire and help youth to be successful academically and to help them prepare themselves for a career path of their choice.
Does anybody else have any more questions?
Have you gone back to visit?
No, I have not gone back to visit Laos. I've always wanted to go back. Recently, I heard that the camp, Ban Vinai, was opened up again for the general public, but right now it's over. It's just, nature has taken over. So hopefully they can get that. The Thai government is trying to get that, I guess, up and running as a tourist destination, kind of a historical site for everyone to go back and visit. I know there was a group that went back recently, but I myself haven't been back.
Your last name is what again?
I'm Zhang, so I belong to the Zhang clan. In the Hmong community, we have 18 clans. So 18 clans, yep. So the clans are really just to divide so that for marriage purposes, so that, you don't marry into your same clan, your relatives, you marry to a different clan. So we have 18 clans. The majority of it in Marathon County, I believe, are the Zhangs, Yangs, Vangs, Taos. They're the bigger groups here. And then in the Rapids area, the Kangs are mostly in the Rapids area. But I also have a YouTube channel called Hill Tribe Storyteller. And on this channel, I tell Hmong folk stories in English and in Hmong. So I'll do an English version, and then I'll do a Hmong version, which is like almost exact, they're exact copies of each other, just in different languages, hoping that I can capture English speakers to listen. Like my kids, they don't understand Hmong anymore. So telling that in English will allow them to kind of absorb that cultural aspect of, hey, we have some pretty cool stories too. And one of the stories there is how the 18 clans came to be. And it's fictional, but it's kind of interesting how the clan names are that came to be. So if you have time, go give it a listen. Hopefully I can get some scary story out for the month of October here.
Are they still creating some of the beautiful pictures?
Yes, the story cloth, they are still making story cloth. Now, instead of doing it to sell for, to feed their family, now it's more for just decorative or, just to preserve our culture. I'm not the historian on this, but I've heard from many historians that our story cloth was once our written language when we were back in China. And because of the prosecution that the Chinese government, was kind of moving us out of their land, out of our land, not their land, we hid our language in the story cloth, in the patterns, in the artwork, because when they would capture the Hmong, they would kill the males, right? But they would spare the females. So then you notice that my outfit is very plain. It's just black red sash. But the women, they would have elaborate outfits with all kinds of pattern because the language was preserved, the history was preserved in those story cloth. And that's how we pass the knowledge down through generations, without the enemy knowing that the information is being preserved and carry on, because they would spare our daughters and our wives and kill the men. So,
I have a question for you. Young child,
yes.
and of course, there were a lot of American holidays.
Mm.
And so, when you came here, what did you think about, like Christmas and are those holidays that you started to celebrate as well?
Yeah, we started celebrating those holidays. Well, I grew up in a shamanistic household, but we converted to Christianity probably 20-some years ago. So we're Lutherans. But celebrating those holidays were interesting to me. But as a kid, I loved them because free candy. Who wouldn't want free candy, right? Halloween, free candy. Christmas, gifts. Easter, free candy. Again, so, it was great. But because we only have like one major holiday that we celebrate. And that's No Big Yo, or Eat 30, if you translate it literally to English. Back in the day, after harvest season, right? Like Oktoberfest, or, like harvest season, we would just kind of stop farming. And it was a time to enjoy the fruits of your labor, be able to take down a hog that you've been raising all year, just eat for 30 days, eat 30, 30 meals for your friends and family. And it would be a communal meal that you call everyone to come and join you. So it's a celebration for all community. And here we adapted it to the Hmong New Year. So when we celebrate the Hmong New Year, we're basically celebrating No Big Yo, or Eat 30. And we invite the whole community to join us. It's not just a Hmong event. It's kind of like we're, celebrating a whole year's worth of everyone working and grinding and farming. And now let's just sit down and have a meal together. And when we celebrate the Hmong New Year, we encourage and invite the whole community to join us because that's what it's all about. It's that Eat 30. You guys got any questions up front? No? Okay, Zach.
So what was it like before you moved to America?
Well, as you can see, some of the pictures, the camp was very rural. Like, we didn't have sidewalks and roads. We have dirt paths. When it rained, it got really muddy, and there wasn't a lot of toys going around. I remember I used to have the little red truck that my mom got me, and then one day a bigger kid took it away. Still looking for that red truck. One of these days, if I find him, he owes me a red truck. So, but a lot of times we played marbles, to pass time. We played a game called Tulu, where you spin like a wooden top, and you fling it with the string, and then the other guy tries to knock your top out with their top. So we played that. A lot of times we play a game where we threw our sandals. If you had sandals, you threw sandals, and the other guy would whip his sandals to hit your sandals out of a ring, and whoever can knock the other guy's sandal out, pretends they take the sandal as prize. So yeah. Good questions. Yep.
What were some of the hardest things for your parents culturally to adjust to?
I think a lot of it was not being able to practice their religion here in the state. They had to tone it down a lot over the years. That's one of the reasons why we converted to Christianity, because we had to put our faith into something, and not being able to practice a lot of the rituals, being shaman, because we believe, our people believe emotional health, spiritual health, physical health, right? And when you don't have that spiritual health, it's hard on you and your family. So yes, it was hard for them to practice their rituals. It was hard to get live animals because some of the rituals required live animal as a sacrificial animal, to your ancestors. To bless you with a good harvest, you might sometimes have to sacrifice a chicken for your ancestors so that you may have a good harvest. Or, if one of your child was scared, and, they got sick because they went into shock, you would have to do a soul calling ceremonies, or you might have to sacrifice a chicken and some hard-boiled eggs to call their soul back, call their spirits back into their physical body, because they probably got scared at the park, they almost drowned, things like that. So it was hard to see like this Hmong shaman out at a park with some chicken, singing and calling, the souls of a kid that almost drowned. People walking by were like, oh, what's that crazy guy doing out there, with a live chicken? So we had to adjust, and I think that was one of the hardest things. The other is language. My dad was a very educated man in Laos. He spoke 3 languages, Laos, Hmong, Thai, and then when he came to the U.S., he had to learn English too. So now he has 4 languages under his belt that he speaks fluently. But his English is the worst one because he learned that at a late age. So language has been hard. And the Hmong language, there's not a lot of vocabulary to explain ourselves. There's no past tense or present or future tense. So we have a lot of trouble with grammar because, saying like, I ate lunch yesterday, right? Or I ate lunch. You automatically know that I'm talking about lunch that already happened. In Hmong, we would have to say, "Na mo kumu no shu toko." Yesterday, I went and ate with you. So then when they say, like, I'm going to the market, right? In the Hmong language, my dad would just say, I go to market. I go to market. There's no little filler words. So when you hear a Hmong elderly speak and you hear them say, I go to market, you have nice day, sir. In their language, they're saying, Gumutala, Zhongshenjiko. So it's when they translate it, he literally translated word for word for what he's saying. So it sounds weird.
How about food?
Food? Well, a lot of the stuff that you guys eat around town, they're not Hmong food, even though they're part of the Hmong restaurants, right? They're not Hmong food. The food that we have incorporated or have adapted into our palate by immigrating. So there's Chinese cuisine, Thai cuisine, Lao, Vietnamese, everything. If you really want to get down to the nitty-gritty of Hmong food, it's usually like really rural, plain food. So rice, a free-range boiled chicken with salt and pepper, that's it, bam. Maybe have some boiled beans on the side as your veggie, or you might boil some pork ribs with mustard green, salt and pepper. That's it. This stuff's not going to sell in a restaurant. It's really plain. It's really actually really healthy eating too. And that's one of the issues that we have here is now we have so many varieties that, you don't get skinny anymore and you're not hungry anymore. Yeah. So our food is very simple.
Do they import some things from Laos?
Yes, I think there's a lot of things that they import from Laos and Vietnam and the Southeast Asian country. I know that right now in Laos and Vietnam, they do rubber tree, manufacturing of rubber. So that's one of the things that they import. They still import a lot of the clothes that we wear, the Hmong clothes from Laos. There are still individuals out there making them. So now we're trying to incorporate more of our patterns and our culture into everyday wear, where we can wear every day. So you might see a Hmong person with a sweater with, maybe an elephant print embroidery on it, or, a guy with a tie that has some floral print on it, or a tie clip, or maybe a silver piece jewelry like this. Not as big, but maybe like a necklace, so. Yeah, if you guys have questions, now it's the time to ask them.
What kind of wild animals did you have over there?
Oh, in Laos, I myself have not experienced hunting in Laos, but my dad is an avid hunter. So, he has hunted everything from like wild boars to like, they call these little deer gawa. They're not like big deers like ours, but they're like little. They're about the size of, a full grown one is about probably the size of a fawn. Here, they would hunt those guys. They would hunt squirrels and wild chickens. You know, they're a lot more colorful. They'll hunt pheasants. Sometimes they'll hunt an animal that's kind of a mix between a possum and a porcupine kind of guy. And apparently my dad said those are a delicacy back in his days. So, yes, and we're avid hunters and gatherers. So here in the state, right now, hunting season, a lot of Hmongs are out there in the woods hunting and going back to their roots, and harvesting game animals. So, we fish and hunt and farm. Farming is a way of life, and we still do that here in Maritime County. There's still a lot of farmers market that provide a lot of produce, and they do Jensen farming. Our younger generation, I don't farm anymore. I guess as we grow more, the newer generation, it'll be less and less.
You explained to me what that was around your neck, and you explained that other people.
Yes, this silver piece is called lu sao, okay? Lu sao in Hmong translate to lock. A lock, right? Lu sao, to lock. So it's a piece, to my understanding, that reminds my Hmong people of when the French imprisoned us back when they occupied Laos. A lot of my people was imprisoned, and these metal locks, rings were locked around their neck. And after the French left and we fought against them, my people started wearing them as jewelry to remind us that we are the ones that are going to choose who locks us. Hmong means free man. And, I guess that's why we always kind of have a problem with authority. And they like to live free, and this is a reminder that, of the price that a lot of people pay for freedom. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I can definitely pass around so you can feel the weight. Feel the weight of it. And this is the guy version, so it's lighter.
Did you meet your wife here in Wasco?
I met my wife at UW River Falls. They were doing a cultural festival, and I was performing a poetry reading for their university, and we kind of just met there.
Are all these children yours?
Oh, yeah. Yep, go ahead.
Did your mother and her brother ever get reunited, or did you
Yes.
have other family that came over?
Yeah, my mom and her brother reunited probably 5 or 6 years after we came to the States. They arrived, and they actually live in Appleton now. My mom's family, most of them are in Appleton. And then my dad, he left his mom when he was about 12 years old, and he didn't reunite with his mom until like 35 years later, that my grandma finally immigrated here to the U.S. with us sponsoring her to come over here. And he, finally met his mom, and his mom stayed with us. My grandma lived with me for the last part of her life, and she passed away peacefully about 5 years ago. So, yeah. She lived to be about 88 years old on paper, but actually, she's about 101 probably when she passed. Yeah. So she's seen it all. She said to me, son, I never imagined in my life that I would be standing here talking through a glass screen to my relatives across the world. Never in my mind, when I was your age, thought that this was possible. Right? And that made me think about the things that we will live to see, things that I don't even comprehend right now, that I'm hoping that one day I could be in her shoes and be like, I never knew we could go vacation on the moon, right? kids would be like, hey, Dad, let's go to the biggest mall in the world, right? And here, put this headset on. Like, we're not leaving? Nope. We just put the headset on and we go in and you can touch and feel and eat everything and we're all virtual. You know, so it scares me a little bit, but yeah, my grandma's like, she never thought that she'd fly on a plane. She never thought that she would look through a screen and see another face, a living person talking back to her, you know. She never thought that she'd witness like blood transfusion or, you know, an organ transplant. You know, those things were not part of what she was, you know, she ever knew.
Well, thank you, that was amazing. What a privilege to have you come in and speak to us, so, well, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, it's my pleasure, and thank you to the American Historical Society for inviting me, and I encourage you, if you see your Hmong neighbors, sit down with them, talk with them, have a meal with them. You know, they are eager to share their stories with you. They're eager to tell you about their lives, and they're eager to hear about yours, because I'm pretty sure you all have wonderful stories that, you know, you can share with your Hmong neighbors, and we need to do more of that. Just sit and talk to our neighbors, because you'd be surprised to find out that everyone is pretty much like everyone. We have the same dreams and goals, and we kind of want the same thing. It's just a lot of times we don't take the time to talk to each other.
Our next door neighbors brought us egg rolls we loved.
Yeah. Egg rolls are good.
Nice treat.
Yeah. All right.